prosecution outlined how accounting practices did not.
What kind of likeness is that? If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum. I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
Welcome to another episode of Goiter Boys. Goiter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins, the outs, the highs, and the lows of making comics. I'm your host, JB, with my co-host, Cam.
What's up, y'all? Today we are joined by Los Angeles-based cartoonist Josh Pettinger, and in the spirit of the collaboration between Autoptic Festival and the Goiter Boys podcast, we are going to be joined on this first segment by a friend of the show, Pete Faecke. We're going to kind of switch it back to how we used to do it, and we're going to have everybody on for questions during this first segment, and then after the break, we'll have our main feature as part of the Autoptic programming and our interview with Josh. We did get some questions for you, Josh, and then some that we can all kind of chip in on.
All right.
So first question came from friend of the show, Rock Nasoon. How has this pandemic affected your comic process and your relationship to comics?
Well, for me, it basically completely froze it for about a month. First month, I couldn't draw anything. I completely paralyzed by this, the fear of homelessness and poverty. And then, once the unemployment came in, I started to realize that this is it's basically the thing I've been dreaming of for. Apart from, it sounds terrible because of all the death and destruction and everything, but I had time for the first time. I wasn't trying to fit in an hour between sleep and a double. I was working in restaurants before this. And so, I was super productive for maybe the last 2 months. And then when I moved to Los Angeles recently, and maybe just under a month ago, I haven't been able to draw anything again. I've been animating, but that feels so low stakes compared to comics, because that's not what I've been pursuing for all these years. So I'm kind of still doing creative things right now, but I'm basically back to square one again with comics. The thought of putting pen to paper is just, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I'm getting ready to move, and I'm just moving across town, but it's throwing my process up too. Just the idea of moving. I kind of was
a mental burden moving.
Yeah, for sure. I was just laughing when you said it's what you've been dreaming of, because I was joking for a long time about just waiting for the day where I can finally fucking get fired and get unemployment and just draw comics for a while before I gotta look for another job. Which didn't really happen for me. I've been working through it the whole time, but
oh damn.
Yeah, I feel like the big thing it's done for me is I'm not making any money on comics this year, and so I'm not buying as many comics, and I'm not reading as many comics, and that's been a bummer.
Oh, I've found I can't read comics while I'm making comics, so I've definitely been buying more comics and reading more comics.
Yeah, so I mean, the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't get unemployment until 6 weeks into the pandemic, but to be honest, I should have been working a lot more earlier on, but kind of like you, Josh, I was also just too stressed to work. I did actually end up writing a whole comic, and I'm actually in the process of working on that. So my relationship to them, I have been reading a lot more comics. When I started getting unemployment, that extra stimulus boost, I tried to support the creators that I liked, and I would go to the local shop here and try to pretty much get everything that Fana and Drawn and Quarterly put out, because that's what they carry mainly. And then I would order from people online to try and, I'm getting all this free money. So if I can buy a $10 comic, anything I can do to help somebody else out that's in the scene. But as far as my relationship to them, I've been, happy that I've been able to read a lot more lately. But, I'm still just as passionate about them. It kind of sucks because without shows, it kind of feels like it's directionless in a way, because that kind of kept me on a schedule. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think my unemployment runs out in the very end of October. So I will be able to, quote unquote, get paid to work on this book, which will be pretty exciting. So not really much difference over here outside of the volume of what I've been able to read.
Yeah, I'm staying passionate too. I laugh every time I'm listening to an episode and JB's talking about how comics don't matter and all this, because I'm like, in my head, I'm always like, comics are the only thing that matters.
And I think that's the balance of the show is I think they matter and JB doesn't, which is two very valid viewpoints to have.
We're both right.
So, yeah.
Does it matter? Doesn't it matter?
What about you, JB?
What was the question again?
How has the pandemic affected your comic process and your relationship to comics?
Well, not a whole lot, actually, now that I think about it. I mean, like I got
You had to start doing a lot more freelance stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got fired in March, like mid-March. No, early March, right when the pandemic was starting to pick up. So that was unfortunate. But it actually ended up being for the better because, you know, like you all were talking, getting unemployment and then also just getting to work constantly at home on, you know, cartoons and whatever has been pretty nice. But in terms of like my engagement with comics, it hasn't really changed because, I mean, I think we all know that we don't go out much as a result of making comics. It is a very solitary, long process. So not seeing other humans or interacting with other people, I feel like I've been preparing for this my entire life.
Yeah, totally. It's our time to shine in that regard.
Right.
Yeah, I did feel like there was this thing at the beginning. I don't know if you guys noticed it, but at the beginning, like maybe end of March, early April, there was such a panic with cartoonists that, you know, all of our day jobs, well, so many of our day jobs were gone that everybody was buying each other's comics for a couple of weeks and then commissioning each other. And I don't know if you guys noticed any of that happening.
No, for sure. Yeah. And that's, you know, kind of why I still like I've bought more comics this year than ever. And I think that's just partly due to the fact that I have way more income than I'm used to having. And also just like a need to, you know, not every, like, you know, like you, Pete, you know, you didn't have the luxury of getting unemployment. So anything I can do, you know, to help support anybody with comics. There's a lot of comics that I feel like I normally wouldn't have bought if I was working for my money. Not that I'm not working, but, you know, you get what I'm saying, right? Like,
I feel IRS, we're not actually working. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. So I feel like, you know, I had all this like money that I wasn't used to having. So if I can buy, you know, like I said, if I could support, you know, artists that I normally wouldn't, not that I wouldn't support them, but I didn't have the financial means to, you know, possibly pick up a comic from them, you know, I'm happy to pass out that money if I can.
Well, I can vouch for you too. I think you were like one of the first or second orders on my new book this year. So,
hell yeah. Well, with yours, you know, I would have supported you.
Yeah,
for sure.
I still got to get that. Actually, I'm the loser here because I haven't even bought that yet.
I got some cool promo stuff coming up, so it's kind of dumb. I keep telling people to like wait for the promo. So I'm like prolonging my sales that I really need, but I do have some cool shit coming up.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. So the next question, we got a couple for Josh here. The next question comes from friend of the show, Alex Knoll. Is everybody a friend of the show now? Let's see.
Fuck all of them.
Alrighty.
Yeah. No more friends. Right. No new friends.
Especially Alex.
Alrighty. Alex Knoll wrote in and asked, Josh, is there any research that goes into writing, like the war story in Goiter 3 or Victory Squad?
Minimal. I mean, it's all stuff that I've never researched anything specifically for the comic. It's just I've always been interested in World War II. You know, I watch every documentary on World War II ever made. So I mean, that just leaked its way into the comics that way. But yeah, I've never really done any research for a comic. I probably would like for if I was going to make a larger comic, but I'm not researching these little smaller comics.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. So the next question came from Evan Salazar, who you actually just recently put out a mini comic with, Wimp Digest. But Evan asked, why does he hate whiteout so much?
There's something that's diagnosable here, but if I'm working on a page, I put a tiny bit of whiteout on. It's so hard for me to move to the next page. It's like the whole thing is ruined, tainted. I don't know. There's something I need to figure out, but I just want this perfect page that I've made from start to finish and there's no errors on it. I'm like that in every aspect of life, like with tidiness and things like that. Maybe it's like some form of OCD, I don't know, but I can't do whiteout. Start the page again. I redraw it. Honestly, I have.
Do you ever do it? You would never do a paste over or anything then?
No.
Yeah.
So-
I've gotten better at it. Definitely the last comic I made, there's a lot of whiteout in it, but with
Interesting.
I mean, I have next to my desk, I'll have like 5 of exactly the same pages, drawn exactly the same, and I'll be using a ruler to make sure everything's exactly where it was.
Yeah, that is
it's
OCD.
terrible,
You
but-
just described regular OCD.
Yeah, I think so. I don't like saying it because I'm not diagnosed. It's like,
No, I think, well, why don't you just get a large format printer and you can do your pencils and then you can just print those out anytime you make a mistake instead of redrawing them by hand every time.
I don't know, it sounds expensive. How much is a flatbed printer?
The large format printers can run you about 150 to 200.
I don't
You
know.
get the big flatbed scanner with it too, though.
Yeah, that's what it
There's,
is. Yeah, the flat.
And
Yeah.
then you can print Bristol board.
Yeah, you can. If you get the large format one, you can print 11 by 17.
And like I said, I've gotten better at it. And the last 2 comics I've worked on, there's a lot of whiteout in it. And I think I've gotten past that, but definitely for the longest time, I couldn't do whiteout.
Well, the upside to that is you have like a lot of versions of original art to sell.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've accidentally sent people the wrong ones before. Ones that aren't in the comic.
That
I'm
makes it
90%
even
sure
more
I've done
valuable.
that. Yeah, maybe.
Hell
You
yeah.
that's also just so much drawing too. You get consistent that way. I used to do that with my thumbnails. I would just go straight to ink, and then if I messed it up, I'd just start over, just figuring, if you do it over and over again, you'll get it right.
Wow.
Well, the way I used to do it is even worse. Say I was on the 5th page and I made a mistake on the 5th page. It was all tainted
Oh, you start the
before
whole
then.
comic
So
over?
yeah, I've done that. I think with
what?
Goiter
Wait,
2,
whoa, whoa.
God.
No,
with
wait,
Goiter
why,
2, I did that about 3 times. Yeah,
wait, why did you have to do the previous pages again?
tainted. I don't know.
Because the next one was messed up, man.
The flow of the work was gone.
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, I've gotten past that for sure. I'm definitely not at that level anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
It's astounding that you've gotten as much work done as you
Yeah.
have. I can't
Yeah, basically.
imagine how much time you
That's
spent
wild.
drawing.
Well-
like 5 issues in 2 years.
Well, no, I put out Goiter 1 in 2014, and I put out Goiter 2 in 2018.
Oh, okay.
So that's what.
I
There was
see,
4 years
okay.
of that basically.
Yeah, okay.
But then Goiter 2 through 5 is all 2018 to 2020. So
Yeah.
yeah, you sped up the process for sure. That's awesome. So next question came from Instagram user SadBoyAngryMan. Josh, what got you into animation? For a little bit of background context, Josh, you have been posting little animation videos that you've been making recently on Instagram.
Yeah. Just The Simpsons. Like originally, that was just like basically like I wanted to make cartoons since I went to school for animation too. So it's just like an obsession with The Simpsons growing up. That and like Beavis and Butthead, things like that.
Is that a thing? I feel like as popular as The Simpsons are in the US, I feel like they're even more popular in the UK.
Well, in the UK, there's like 4 television channels.
Right.
Well, you have like cable, but I mean, growing up, we didn't have cable. So The Simpsons is shown, there'll be like 2 episodes in the morning, 2 episodes in the afternoon, 2 episodes in the evening. So it's just,
Wow.
It's like that and Friends are the 2 things that you just watch multiple times a day.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we have no Seinfeld, just Friends and The Simpsons.
All programming is just Friends. And The Simpsons. No news.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It'll be like a Friends marathon in the morning, and then there'll be a Simpsons marathon.
Does UPN own the UK? I don't understand. What,
Is UPN even a network anymore?
yeah,
Did you guys have King of the Hill or anything?
What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not? I like this new generation of music.
You're looking at the real deal now. Gonna kick your sorry ass out on the street. That what you got? You used to think you owned the street. Well, pack your bags and your ass is dead meat. Victory is sweet. Bring it on. Here's your receipt. Bring it on. What you gonna do about it? Bring it on. Is that what you got? Bring it on. And what you gonna do about it? Bring it on. Gonna kick your sorry ass, so what you gonna do?
It's all toilet sounds. Let me tell you, Bobby, there's nothing funny about these sounds. What that person on your tape has is a medical disorder.
Yeah, we had King of the Hill, I think like maybe once a week they would show
sure.
King of the Hill.
That was always blocked together with The
Oh.
Simpsons here. I have very vivid memories of an hour at King of the Hill and then an hour at The Simpsons before dinner every night.
But I'm sure it's probably so expensive to buy an American
Sure.
show for syndication over in the UK. So they just have to milk it as much as they can when they do buy a show.
Right, yeah.
Adds up. Alrighty, next question is from Michael Sweater. Michael wants to know, do you think Netflix optioning things is what pushed SPX brand comics back towards cohesive narratives and away from the absolute flood of illegible, risographed poetry of the last decade?
Yes. Moving on. No, who wants to answer that one first?
Yeah, who wants to tackle that first? Well, in my experience, I'll say this. I have been doing shows since 2014, I think. So I may have missed, the front half of that. I think I know the material that you're talking about, but I mean, I don't think that Netflix, I think that there's two different types of people that make comics. I think that there are the people that make comics that they just want to pitch to Netflix, pretty much storyboarding, a miniseries or a movie. And I think there are people like us who just love making comics, and we don't really do anything that's, motivated or driven by a Netflix option. If it happens, cool. But I really do think that there is a type of artist that leans into that, and, or not necessarily artists, a writer and an artist, whoever it may be. But I really don't I still think that there's a strong, art comics scene. I still see a lot of that stuff, and I enjoy some of that stuff. I think that, I enjoy, comics with narratives, and I also enjoy, abstract comics, that are just interesting to look at. But I don't really think that Netflix, in my opinion, has pushed comics in any way. I just think there's just individuals that ttry to use comics to get to Netflix.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think also kind of what's in fashion is always going to ebb and flow. And, a lot of that probably has to do with who's publishing what, how visible those publishers are. So I would imagine what he's responding to is seeing more narrative work coming out of bigger publishers, I would guess. I think there may be...
Do you think it's just the publishers are just publishing things that they think can go to... Instead of artists making things more that they think can go to Netflix, the publishers are like grabbing the things that they think they can option later?
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
also a
that
lot of
is the case.
times for something to get optioned, it's most of the time it's pretty good. Publishers are also just looking for good stuff.
I think most of the larger direct-to-market publishers are the ones who approach comics in that way, who think about a comic pitch or something that they're going to publish as something that could easily be optioned. And even now, you have a lot of publishers that have their own department that's responsible for doing just that. That takes books that they're publishing or about to publish and then starts sending those out to producers and, different people in Hollywood or whatever to option it and hopefully sell it to make it into a show.
Which is honestly probably becoming more important to do as a publisher. I mean, we're just talking about Fantagraphics changing their logo before we got on mic, and part of the thing that they're saying with changing their logo is that they're dropping the books from the Fantagraphics name. So they're just Fantagraphics now. They're not Fantagraphics books,
Yeah, who wants books?
Yeah, right. One thing I want to say too, I think it's possible that artists are leaning more narrative now than maybe a little more experimental, but there's a lot of talk about the sort of prestige era of TV that we're in. So I could see something where just like the environment that we're in as creators is like very heavily saturated with narrative forward work. And, you don't make work in a vacuum. So that stuff rubs off on you one way or another. I know I went from being like a weirdo experimental guy into trying to work more narratively, but I feel like that's also just me like growing up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, with this new stuff that I'm working on right now. I was always like, my work before, I feel like it was always really short and really, it had a narrative, but it wasn't anything that was necessarily strong. It was kind of just little glimpses into, a person's life for a few pages. And with this new stuff, I'm trying to put more writing and dialogue into it, as well as, making sure that the comic flows well from a visual standpoint. But I do think that's just strengthening your chops and you're able to tackle a bigger project that has more of a narrative.
Yeah, I think some of that is also just when you're younger, you think, I'm going to reinvent the medium. I'm going to come in, I'm going to change everything. But then as you get older, you maybe appreciate just what the medium already is and try and fit yourself into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yep, I was going to say, I fit that narrative as well.
Totally.
I mean, also, there's still plenty of people that do non-narrative Rizo stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't see any kind of like drop off in that, really.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you go to any small press show, at least here in Chicago, or any zine fest, you're still going to see tons of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and poetry comics are fucking cool sometimes, so I don't know what the beef is.
Well, and I mean, like, and you look at something, you know, I don't know if, like, you know, the poetry aspect of that question, maybe I haven't seen that material. I just assumed it was like art comics, you know, like Riso printed comics that don't really focus on, they kind of just break that traditional rule of being a comic, you know, so I don't know. I didn't really see any kind of poetry stuff. Not to say it didn't happen, because like I said, I've only been doing shows for like the last half of the decade.
There are a few people that I'm forgetting the name specifically, and we probably don't even need to be specific, but there are a few people probably 3 or 4 years ago that were bigger names doing non-narrative, very poetic stuff than I think you see now more publicly. But I agree with you. I think, you know, boots on the ground, it doesn't look that different to me.
Yeah, if anything, it just is more of a testament to, or what comics can be and what they are. Because, I mean, you know, you go to, you know, you mentioned SPX specifically, you go to SPX and you see those. I feel like there's like the type of comics at SPX that, I don't want to sound like I'm gatekeeping, but it doesn't seem like an SPX brand comic. It seems like something that you would try to take to like a C2E2 or a, you know, a bigger Wizard World type show or a Comic-Con.
Yeah, you start to see a lot of fan art over there too. I'm not really sure what the SPX brand even is.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I feel like it's a really big show that is just comics focused as opposed to, you know, other media like TV and movies and video games and so forth.
Right, fucking toys and shit.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that a lot of the newer faces that I see at these shows are usually the ones that are doing narrative stuff anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, how, like, you know, you eventually grow as an artist to be able to tackle something with more of a narrative. It almost seems like there's a lot of younger people that are also just coming in doing long ass books that I see at SPX as well. So, you know,
long ass books, long books.
I wonder if he's, I wonder if he's talking about like Paper Rodeo stuff being like SPX brand, because they were kind of that East Coast weirdo thing for a while.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
that would be a little ahead of our time.
The funny thing is that there was also some criticism about Cake here in Chicago becoming too much like SPX.
Yeah.
But I don't know what version of SPX they're referring to if we're going to, you know, talk about the changes that have occurred with SPX in general. So,
well, and to be honest, I mean, I've only tabled a Cake last year, but outside of like the table fees, I think SPX is a good show. So what was the big difference that, you know, set Cake apart from SPX? I mean, this might be kind of getting off on a tangent, but
no, I mean, it was just the content of the shows, the type of creators, the type of work that you're seeing, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like
I think the first few years of Cake were like really specifically regional too. It was a lot more Midwest and Chicago people.
Yeah.
And it's you started seeing a lot more East Coast people coming in maybe 3 or 4 years into the show.
Yeah, and I think that criticism might be referring to like a specific style choice when it comes to narrative comics. It's just like very cute, very straightforward, simple.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something else too that occurred to me in talking about Paper Rodeo is doing weird shit like that well is really, really, really hard. And so I think sometimes part of the reason that you don't see as much weird stuff like that would be, you know, either people aren't doing it well, so people aren't talking about it, or there's always just sort of like a lightning in the bottle moment when it does happen. And, you know, you can't really manufacture that.
Yeah. Anyway, Michael, don't ask us a question ever again. You're now banned from asking any question of any kind. No, I'm kidding. But that's a good question, actually. I'm sure we could do a whole episode just about that.
I actually responded to it. I was like, good question.
Yeah, he knows now. All right. Yeah, all right. Well, I think that about does it for questions. We will take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to have Josh Pettinger with us. And we're going to get into the nitty gritty of their work and output.
Thanks to Pete for stopping by and joining us. And
no.
After this episode, make sure to check out the Autoptic 2020 programming that will be uploaded, honestly, the same day this is up.
Yeah, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, good to be back.
All right, you know where the door is. Get out.
Okay. All right.
All right.
We'll be right back. Can
you name the truck with four-wheel drive? Smells like a steak and seats 35. Canyonero, Canyonero. Well, it goes real slow with the hammer down. It's the country pride truck endorsed by a clown. Canyonero, Canyonero.
Hey, hey!
The Federal Highway Commission has ruled the Canyonero unsafe for highway or city driving.
Mr. Surfer, have you ever considered propane as an alternative energy source for that board of yours? With a little retooling, I could get it to work. Tell you what I'm going to do. Being that you're my neighbor and I like you, I'm going to give you the new neighbor discount and a free t-shirt. So what do you say?
Take a ride on the Cosmic Tide on an all-new Silver Surfer next as Fox Kids Heads for the Hills continues.
Just think, with repeat business like that, I could eventually be supplying propane galaxy-wide.
Now, back to our program.
And welcome back to episode 32 of Gutter Boys. We are here still with Josh Pettinger. So, Josh, you just recently moved to Los Angeles, but you are from England originally. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm from a small island off the south coast of England called the Isle of Wight. It's like really small, 8 by 23 miles long. I moved to Chicago when I was 23, and then I just moved to LA a month ago.
So you were here in Chicago prior?
Yeah, I think so. 23 to 31. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What hood were you in?
Logan Square?
Logan?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Where are you guys both based?
Well, I'm based out of Chicago in Pilsen, and Cam is based out of Louisville.
Yeah, Kentucky.
Oh,
Yeah. So, growing up, you've been doing, well, let's back up a little bit. Off air, we were talking about your one-man anthology series called Goiter. The first issue came out in 2014, you said, and then number 2 through 5 have been released between 2018 and the present day. You were about to put out issue 5 with Tinto Press. Before Goiter, were you working on comics? How long have you been doing comics? Why comics?
So I've been making comics since I was maybe 7. I used to have this, it was Beavis and Homer Simpson comic. I did like a couple issues of them in school, and I've just always been drawing comics. But it's kind of weird because there was nowhere for me to buy comics. So I had no point of reference except for Simpsons comics, and then Orion and Manhunter, which I found in this store once. So basically, I didn't really know what comics were, but I was drawing them. So I ended up making animation, focus on animation. But then I discovered kind of like independent comics when I went to college in London. But why comics? I don't know. Just sit at home and control this little world, I guess. I don't know.
Hell yeah. So growing up, you mentioned it was the Simpsons comics. Was it because you mentioned earlier, you lived on the Isle of Wight, which was smaller. So was the distribution of comics just, were there not any comic stores, or, where were you getting your comics from? You mentioned it was the Simpsons only. So was there just nothing else that interested you, or was there just no content available for you?
No, there was no comic book shops. There was you could buy the Simpsons comics in I guess the equivalent of a Walgreens, just in a grocery store. And then there was one store called Musical Sounds, which it had pornography in the back, and then band T-shirts in the front, and then he just had this giant box of just Orion comics and Manhunter comics. So I'd buy them for 20 pence or something. It sounds like I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I didn't. But yeah, that was my only reference for what comics were until I was maybe 20 years old, when I went to Forbidden Planet in London. It was the big comic book shop in London.
So you mentioned, going to that shop. Did you go in seeking certain comics out, that maybe you'd seen online, or did you just kind of pick and choose while you were there?
No, it was just I just went in there. I was just walking around. I walked in. It was like Dan Poussey was the one I bought. That I was like drawn to. Like I remember it as this moment of walking into the comic book shop and it just like zooming in on that one comic and then like a bright light around it. But that obviously didn't happen. It's just how I remember it. But yeah, it's just like I bought that one Dan Poussey book, and then since then it's just like obsessively buying comics and making comics.
And it's kind of interesting because art wise, I don't really I can see a lot of Klaus's influence in your work in the sense of somewhat on the storytelling beats. Each issue of Goiter is a self-contained story. Some of them also have little stories within them as well. Little single page stories. A couple pages here and there. Yeah, but usually one of them there's always one long story that anchors every book down. When you're, I kind of wanted to talk about that because your books, when you read them, you're just an excellent storyteller. They're just presented in nice packages, just wrapped up with a nice bow. You wonder where these characters are going to go, but also for the moment that you've spent with them as a reader, in my opinion, you feel fulfilled in the sense of, that was a good comic. That was a good story. You tie up all the loose ends well. Like that to me is a sign of good writing. You're writing and drawing the books. So are you writing these, way in advance? What's your process like when you're actually, starting a comic?
Yeah, so I don't feel like I really spend that much time actually writing. Like I'll have a small idea and I'll just let that exist in my head for maybe a month or two. There's like, you have moments when little strands kind of come together, and then the point where I feel like I have a full story in my head, I'll just go straight to paper, just drawing, like penciling. So there's like minimal writing, and usually when I get like maybe 3 or 4 pages into the pencil, I'll just write down a list of like everything that needs to happen in the story, and then in like parentheses next to it, it's just like 2 pages. Like this part of the story will last 2 pages or 3 pages. So just writing like 3-letter sentences will be like key gets shot or something like that. That's like the most writing I'll do. So it's kind of like, so the actual drawing of it is all improvised with just these like plot points in my head.
So when you say the drawing's improvised, are you not thumbnailing? Never.
No, never. No, I just go straight to the page.
Do you at least thumbnail out? Because one thing about Goiter as well is you did issue 2 and 3 and the new one 5 at standard size, and then you did number 4 at that magazine size, like 11 Rockets type size. And I feel like your page layouts play to the size of your books. So you're not even like laying that out, like the panel structure or anything like that?
No. I'll just like, I'll know what happens. So I'll be like, I know this, I have 2 pages for this to happen. So I know what happens on the first panel and the last panel of that small section. And I'll just kind of build it around that. But yeah, there's no thumbnailing well, I've tried thumbnailing. It just, like I lose all interest in the story. I lose like motivation to make the comic.
Yeah, so real quick, when did you move from the UK to the States in Chicago?
It would have been 2014, maybe. Yeah, 2014.
Okay, so around the time when you started Goiter.
Yeah, that's exactly like that was. I did that in the first year I was here.
And so, were you still making comics prior to Goiter while you were in the UK still?
Yeah, nothing like I didn't put anything out. It was just like false starts and like trying to make comics. Because it's like after I bought that Dan Poussey book, I was like trying to make my own version of 8-Ball, I guess. But it was just all false starts really.
Gotcha. And have you noticed any sort of differences in terms of the comic scene where you came out of or sort of local to you versus here in the States, specifically in Chicago, since you haven't really spent too much time in LA yet?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I wasn't aware of any comic scene in England. Everything I got into was all American. It was all American comics.
Oh.
And I just like, I know there's like the London Zine Symposium I would go to, which is, it's like a very small version of, it's like a festival. But I wasn't involved in the comic scene at all in England. So I still don't really know how big it is or how, what's going on there. But I know there's Nobrow. That's about the extent of my knowledge of English comics.
Right. And Nobrow kind of went under fire for...
It was the fact that I think the owner is like a trust fund kid, and they were paying really low amounts to nothing at all sometimes.
Right, his father's a billionaire,
something
right?
like that.
Something like that.
I think so, yeah. I think there was also something to do with some former employees there that claimed potential racism in the workplace type of deal.
Wasn't there something that was like they were seeking out certain publishers and like saying that we can't let them corner the market or something? There was some kind of weird email that was going around.
Yeah, I think that was like the owner saying they wanted to crush the competition, basically.
You're right. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, good stuff. I mean, I think No Brow does really great job with printing, but I haven't done work for them, but I haven't heard good things. So as far as working from them based off all the stuff that was coming out on Twitter.
Yeah, I think they release really nice, well-made books, but in terms of like how they function as a company, it's not so good.
Yeah, alrighty.
But anyway, sorry.
I mean, it's two worlds colliding. It's like the billionaire capitalist and then like completely unprofitable art books.
You're right.
It's like, if you have those two worlds colliding, it's not going to be fun for anyone.
That is a weird move to get into comics, to start a publisher and get into art comics.
And that's what I would do if I hit the lottery.
When you could just do hundreds of thousands of other things.
Yeah.
If you're already a billion. Yeah, I don't know. That seems really odd. I mean, it's one thing, Cam, like if you're going to start a publisher, right, if you had the money and the resources, you start a publisher, you're not going to send out an email saying, look, all these other little shit show competition publishers, we need to fucking kill them right now. Right? Like, I don't see that happening. So, I don't know. It just seems like you still have the predatory capitalist attitude, but then you are wanting to invest that into comics, which it doesn't make money. So, what's the get here? Like, am I missing something?
I guess maybe with the funds, possibly you could be like, hey, let me try to make comics accessible and we can print tons of copies so everybody can buy them. But the thing is nobody's going to buy them outside of the built-in market that's already there. But,
Strange.
Josh, I did actually have a question. We were talking about earlier the format of your issue. Goiter 5, which is your new comic that's about to come out, is actually going to be published by Tinto Press.
Yeah.
The other issues of Goiter were all self-published. Now, you did return to the standard comic book size for number 5 after doing that magazine size issue for 4. Was that just something experimental? Do you like working at the standard size better?
This is like me getting too big for my boots, I think. I think I drew maybe a third of the issue, like standard comic book size. And then I think I had like a real block on that comic. And as I went back and redrew it at a different size, just changing the size just kind of reset my brain on that story. So yeah, that's basically the only reason that was a different size.
Well, and I actually reread everything today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, issue 3, you actually wrote in the back, a little bit of a blurb about yourself.
Yeah.
An interesting quote that I actually took from that. You wrote that something along the lines of the comics are not autobiographical, but they are.
Yeah.
And I think that the personalities that you give your characters, I think you could tell it comes from a real place. And me knowing you online, the stand-up comedy elements, I know that if I'm not mistaken, your partner is actually a stand-up comedian, correct?
Yeah.
So you're taking bits of real life. Is that what you were kind of alluding to when you said that it's not autobiographical, but it is? Because, I mean, some of your stories are definitely, fantasy in some elements. You're dealing with like the interdimensional travel, the character that was just a floating head.
So when I'm like drawing the story, it feels like I'm making this complete fiction. But if I go back and read a book, like a comic I've just, made maybe 6 months ago, I can pinpoint every single thing. It's like, oh, that's because this happened in my life and this is because this, So that's kind of what I mean. But it's also, the story will always start a little more autobiographical. Like, for example, in Goiter 3, Wendy Bread, and that's Goiter 4, Sally Talman. That was just supposed to be a small story about working in a restaurant, being a server, and like you're about to turn 30, which is, what was happening in my life, and like feeling like this isn't a long-term career, it's going to end badly if I stay in this job. And then like that, it doesn't feel so interesting to me, so I just add all these like wild elements around it, and then it becomes almost completely not biographical at all. And that's when I go back and reread it later, and everything starts to feel like it is more biographical again. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, for sure. We kind of bring up auto-bio on this show a lot. What's your stance on it? Just personally wondering. Like in comics?
It's like, I'm sure somebody's done it well at some point. I don't know. It's now, in my opinion, it's too much now. It's just, it's never the most interesting people making that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, for sure. So I know that a lot of these stories are standalone. Do you have plans to make these characters interact with one another, or is each issue just going to be its own thing? Like, what are your plans with the series going forward? I know 5's not out yet. I got a copy there were some advanced copies from, I forget the store that was carrying it. But so some people...
Wig Shop.
Wig Shop, yeah. So some people have read the book. I think the Kickstarter for Tinto Press, I think those backers may have gotten some copies as well. Are you going to continue, Goiter? Are there plans for that?
I always think, like, I'm working on this comic right now. I have like 2 pages left to ink, and it's going to be serialized to make basically a graphic novel, trying to make a graphic novel. And I'm probably going to put each issue under Goiter. Like, I like the idea of just everything I ever make is just all Goiter. Like, I die in 40 years or whatever, and it's just 40 issues of Goiter,
Yeah, for sure. So it's going to be pretty much like the 8-ball model, where everything comes out under that. Yeah, I like that.
But even longer stories, just serializing them in Goiter first.
Right. So the new project that you mentioned that you've got a couple pages left, like how long is that project?
Well, it'll be 32 pages for the first issue.
And it's
probably going to be 4 32-page issues.
Okay, so it's going to be like a to-be-continued type deal that's going to run over the next 4 issues?
Yeah,
okay.
But I'm not sure about that even, because again, I like the idea of Goiter being self-contained, like you were saying earlier. So it's I'm debating that which one's more important to me, is just everything being under one name, or keeping Goiter as this certain thing that is just small self-contained stories.
For sure, yeah, and I was doing that for a while. Like, I planned on doing everything under a book called Vacation, and I did 2 issues. I'm going to do another issue, but my last book was called 20, and I just didn't feel that it had the same vibe that I wanted to go for, so I ended up changing the title, but almost regrettably so. But, I feel your conflict there.
Speaking of Goiter, where did that name come from?
I don't know do you guys know, like, Chris Morris, like Brass Eye in The Day to Day? It's it's a British comedy show. It's just like on the special features, these 2 guys, Adam and Joe, like British comedians, did a parody of that show on the special features, and they called it Goiter instead of Jam. So it's just taken off of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just like the name. But the only thing I kind of hate that name now is if I try and Google myself. Like, I have real body horror problems. Like, just looking at a Goiter will make me feel sick. God. So I can't Google myself and read reviews.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that show. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, it's good. Jam.
You mentioned, you moved straight to Chicago from England. Chicago, we talk about it on here. JB's based there. Arguably has the best comic scene in America right now.
Yeah, probably.
So when you relocated here, did you have any experiences in the scene? What was that like for you? Because you went from, kind of growing up in a place that didn't have comics to possibly one of the meccas of, independent comics.
That was like kind of deciding factors of me going all in on comics. The fact that there was a comic scene there. But my experience of it was basically just like drinking draws with Alex Knoll, like meeting some people through him. But yeah, I wasn't that active in the scene. I'm not that sociable really. Like I knew like a lot of the people making comics there, but not that close. But there's some like great stuff there. I mean, I never like tabled at Cake or anything or Zine Fest.
Well, and you recently relocated to LA. Was that comics motivated? I know you've recently been posting on your Instagram. We were talking about it earlier, the animation clips you've been working on, out in California. A lot of comic artists are able to make, a living working in animation. Was that, are you planning on trying to dip your toes into that? Is that just something that you're working on right now?
Partly, like, if there's anything I can do to make a living from art, would be nice. Yeah, it was COVID related, the move. My girlfriend's from Los Angeles, so we moved to be closer to her family. It wasn't a comics decision. I mean, the ideal place to make comics is obviously somewhere where the rent is $300 a month, and that's not LA.
Right.
Yeah, it absolutely is not like that in LA.
Yeah.
Are you living in LA proper or LA County?
Hollywood. No, I'm
oh, wow.
No, I'm not Hollywood. Highland Park, which is like it's close to Hollywood. It's LA proper. I'm in the city. There's helicopters flying overhead every day. It's like Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
A little bit.
LA's great, man. There's a lot of great talent out there in terms of animation and comics, and a lot of overlap, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like hoping to get more active in the comic scene here than I was in Chicago, but so far I haven't been able to venture past my neighborhood. because of the coronavirus.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully when things calm down, you'll be able to do that. And maybe you can do some of the local shows there because they do have some great shows.
Yeah, for sure. I know Comics Art Los Angeles is good. LA Zine Fest is good. And I know that, there's like Long Beach and San Diego shows as well that are within, driving distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Goiter was self-published until this recent issue we mentioned, which was put out by Tinto Press. Did they approach you, or are you just tired of self-publishing?
No, so Jeff Alford, who runs a Wig Shop web shop, which is like your listeners should buy stuff from there. It's just like a really good art book shop online. He actually, I think it was at Dink in Denver, took my comic over to Ted from Tinto Press and was just like, you should like read this guy. Like, he's been my biggest supporter for years. So it was just like somebody else gave them my comic.
Oh, and then Tinto reached out to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So is this just a one-off project, or are you going to team up with them for the next issue?
Yeah, hopefully, if this one does okay, they're going to publish the next one. It'd be nice to have like a base for Goiter to be, but we'll see how this sells with coronavirus. And it was going to be in a few comic book shops, but it got accepted into Diamond. So, kind of higher hopes than usual for that comic.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could technically walk into a shop and order that. That's hell of a distribution.
Yeah.
We shit talk Diamond on here, but if they want to distribute you, it's ultimately a win-win for the creator because it gets you into as many shops as possible.
Maybe because after was it DC left them? Are they going to be the same? Are they going to have the same reach anymore? I don't know.
Yeah,
they probably
I think
will.
so. I honestly, it's kind of early, but I think that DC's probably in the honeymoon phase of their new relationship with whatever distribution they're using. I would not be surprised to see DC go back. They've left before.
I don't know about this stuff. This is a blind spot of mine. He told me it got into Diamond, and I had to Google what Diamond was. So
awesome.
So what are you guys working on? All right, yeah, sorry.
No, I actually, I feel like this should be centered around you, so I don't want to.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I came up with a title for my book today, and it's completely written. I think I'm going to call it Deconstruction. It's coming out from Really Easy Press, which is the same publisher that JB's book is coming from as well.
Deconstruction.
Yeah, that's what I'm. It's just a word that's stuck with me for a few days. I like one-word titles for my books.
I'm picturing flames on the cover and construction tape.
A hard hat.
Yeah.
A foreman maybe somewhere.
Oh, no, a question that I actually had. JB and I are really big wrestling fans, and in issue 4 of Goiter, it's essentially a story about a family. The father is a wrestler who's on the road, hardly sees the family. Do you keep up with wrestling? Is it something that was a part of your past? Because, to be honest, the story seemed pretty... You mentioned earlier in the questions that you don't do much research for your work. It's just stuff you kind of know. And the story in issue 4 wasn't just, let me just make this guy a wrestler. It seemed like the lifestyle of being a wrestler, the wrestler character, has a one-night stand with a fan before going home. This is all kind of inside baseball for what a wrestler's life was like on the road at one point in time. So just for, the show, JB and I being wrestling fans, are you a wrestling fan or?
So I haven't watched wrestling since I was about probably WWE SmackDown. The game came out. So what was that first PlayStation 1?
Yeah, late 90s or
2001.
I'm 31 now. I don't watch wrestling. But yeah, it's I think the Beyond the Mat documentary, I watched that when I was really young, and it's one of those things that implants itself in your head. Yeah. It's just always there, and I guess that's where it came out.
So it's kind of like the storyline almost follows the Jake the Snake stuff from Beyond the Mat, really.
Kind of, yeah. I did picture that main character is basically Jake the Snake Roberts, yeah.
Okay.
Just a broken man.
Yeah, I didn't mean to insult adult wrestling fan.
Oh, no. We know we're lepers. It's okay. Yeah.
Well, you all had World of Sport, right? That was airing on TV I don't know, when was that? The 70s and 80s?
Oh, is that Giant Haystacks?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
There was a bunch of different wrestlers there. But yeah.
That's all I know is Giant Haystacks. It's kind of a punchline in England. Yeah.
So do you go back and visit England, or have you been back since you left?
I have once since I moved here. It's expensive to go there.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
You have to take off work and
So are any of your readers, are they English or, residing in Europe, or are a lot of your readers here in America?
I get Italians and French. I'm actually working on a French translation of collected Goiter 2, 3, and 4 right now.
Nice. Are you self-publishing that, or I don't know if you can even talk about that, but is somebody going to publish that for you?
There's a small publisher, Zine Panic.
Oh, okay.
They're going to do it, yeah. It's going to be like a really small run. But I'm just hand lettering the whole thing right now. It's kind of a nightmare, actually. But you have to Photoshop it into the speech bubbles, which is, French is much longer than English, so...
Well, and that's something that I don't think we've ever actually covered on the show, is translating your work into another language. So did the publisher translate that for you, or did you have to do that yourself?
No, they translated it and sent it to me, and I'm just... So apparently in France, like I wanted to just use make a font of my handwriting, but apparently in France they're real puritanical about that. Yeah, and rightfully so, but yes, I have to hand letter this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think France actually is like the only place where comics are considered high art still.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that they would want you to hand letter that material.
Yeah. More
of a purist culture there, it seems. It seems like there's a really big respect for comics there, which is the dream. If only America was like that, but
Yeah, that was one of the things, just before I got really into comics, I went to Angoulême, not during the festival, but they have a big museum there, like original Crumb and Klaus and Chris Ware, and there's like some Paul Hornshamir. That was like one of the big introductions to comics for me, was seeing the original art in Angoulême.
Yeah, it's a festival I've always wanted to check out. I don't think my work will ever be good enough to table there, but
same.
I would love to go. Well, hey, maybe you've got a French publisher. I mean, it's a big step in that direction.
Yeah, that would be nice to be paid to go to France.
Yeah, of course. I mean, maybe one day you can get the Art Crumb treatment and just trade 9 sketchbooks for a Via over there. So,
Yeah, that's insane. I would love to know the actual financials of that, like how much the house was. I know my grandma bought a house in France for it's like a couple acres for what would be a studio apartment here. So I think that was part of that deal.
Oh, okay, yeah. I wonder if the guy who got those sketchbooks feels fleeced by the deal.
100%, especially, yeah.
Yeah, because Crumb still publishes like his complete sketchbook, so Crumb's still getting paid for the material. I mean, it's cool to own originals, but I couldn't even fathom trading, like being a fan of somebody to be like, yes, here's my house, please give me your sketchbooks.
But it's like once you've looked at them, it's like you look at them a couple times, and then what do you do with them? You can't live in them, like you can a house.
Right. Another thing that I actually wanted to bring up with you, talking about your original art, I actually recently messaged you, I guess within the past few weeks, about possibly buying some pages from you. And you responded with, well, a lot of my pages don't look like the final product. You mentioned that you do like a lot of cleanup. So are you just scanning this stuff in and fixing a lot of it in Photoshop?
Well, like what I mean by that is just like I get to a certain point in the comic where finishing it, if I don't speed up the process, I'm never going to finish it. So I just don't fill in the blacks. And my comics have a lot of like black in there, so it just looks really plain, the original art. So maybe I shouldn't be talking people out of buying my art.
Yeah, well, I'm still interested, so I'll shoot you a message, after the show, and we can figure something out there.
Cool.
So you've been in LA for a couple months now, is that right?
Just under a month.
What was it like moving during all this?
Yeah, so we took a U-Haul. My girlfriend and I drove a U-Haul from Chicago through Nebraska, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and into California. It was pretty wild. I mean, it's like I'd never taken a road trip like that, so it's like this kind of thing you dream of, and you always want to do something like that, and then you're just reminded constantly these aren't normal times. Although there's a lot of places between Chicago and Los Angeles where they are trying to convince themselves this is normal times, which is scary. There's like people in Nebraska playing, like just sitting there playing slot machines in a gas station with no mask on. Terrifying. It's like this virus is never going to go away because of these people playing slot machines in a gas station in Nebraska.
Yeah, the death drive of your average American is really stunning.
Yeah.
So have you been able to work since moving? I know moving's kind of a hassle. I know you mentioned you were almost finished with the current project you're on, a couple pages away. Have you gotten into any kind of work schedule since moving, or has it been kind of a weird adjustment moving your workspace across the country?
No, I'm back to this like the first month up during the pandemic where I just couldn't make any comics, and I'm back to that again. So I've had like 2 pages to ink on this issue, and I can publish it like the day it's finished, but for the month I haven't been able to finish those last 2 pages, but I've just been animating, so I feel like I'm still doing something creative and not just sitting here doing nothing. Actually, it was like MS Harkness on this podcast talking about that was kind of one of the things that got me out of that original funk, You know, it's like that kind of harsh, why are you wasting your time doing nothing? Pull yourself over your bootstraps, that kind of speech.
She definitely got through to me with that too. That
yeah,
because I was definitely not working at all, and then I had to start thinking about comics again after that conversation with them, which is great. Sometimes you need that.
Yeah,
after you've been publicly shamed.
Tough love approach you got there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that kind of thing worked. Just the fear of this thing happening and then having nothing to show for it. And it's like, I'm never going to get these months again to just do just art full time.
Right. Yeah, you got to start working that full-time job, everything, you know, and...
Yeah. I'm basically never going to get that again. So the fear of like looking back and thinking I've squandered that, which is like, you know, you feel guilty saying that, but it's because, you know, people are dying everywhere. But I mean, just on a personal level, that's kind of how I felt.
Right. No, absolutely. I relate. I mean, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, despite the world seeming like it's going to fall apart, in America at least, you know, from a selfish standpoint, this has been a godsend in a way for a lot of cartoonists, I would hope. To be able to actually just create things and get paid for them is nice. Usually that's not how it goes in comics.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of people who are like convincing themselves that they're full-time artists right now. I mean, it's nice. It's nice to feel like that for a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, this was the first time that a full-time artist could actually file for unemployment as well, you know, if you were an independent contractor. It's a silver lining in a horrible situation.
Yeah.
A lot of your work, though, you know, we're talking about your move to LA. A lot of your work, I could tell the buildings and whatnot look just like Chicago.
Yeah.
Are you planning on keeping that in the books? Like, I'm not going to say that your stories are set in Chicago, but it looks like Chicago. If you walk the streets in the neighborhoods of Chicago, a lot of the housing and so forth looks like that. Are you planning on...
So Alex Knoll said it once. He said that the backgrounds I draw look like America drawn by someone who's never been to America. So it's nice that you say that it actually does look like Chicago, which is what I've been trying to do.
Well, also, though, Alex lives there, and I visit 3 times a year, so...
Oh, yeah.
But it looks like Chicago to me. Like, what I see in Chicago, that's what it looks like.
I mean, I've just gone, it's the flatness of Chicago lends itself to cartooning.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you can do with just a single ruler, you know, you can line everything up. With LA, it's a bit difficult drawing. Just drawing a hill, actually, has been difficult for me. But yeah, it's hard to, like, see the palm trees everywhere and, like, all these, like, this cool architecture and not want to draw it. So probably, you know, will seep in there. But, I mean, the comic I'm working on at the moment is set in a giant Amazon warehouse 200 years from now. And that's the only thing I'm going to work on comics-wise for the foreseeable future. So, you know, I'm not drawing LA right now.
And do you have a timeline? I mean, I know number 5 technically isn't out, but do you have a timeline on when you anticipate putting that out? Possibly 2021?
As soon as I get the motivation to finish those last 2 pages, I'll send it to Tinto, and if they don't want it, I'll self-publish it. That's like the great thing about self-publishing is you can do it the week you finish it, you know. With Tinto, it's been a bit more waiting for months for it to come out. Not complaining, though. But so it just depends.
The way Tinto did that, though, was they kickstarted like a group of books. Was that right?
Yeah. It's like a bunch of people. There's some really good stuff. Jonathan Bayliss. Yeah. Charlie LaGreca.
Fortunately, the campaign was obviously funded. And I don't know if this is like a question that, you know, you can answer. And if you feel uncomfortable, you know, we'll cut it. But if the Kickstarter wasn't successful, were you just going to self-publish Goiter 5 or what was the plan there?
Yeah, I would have just put it out myself. I wanted to like cancel the Kickstarter just because it was at the beginning of this pandemic. And I was like, is this going to look really terrible asking people for money as soon as, you know, everybody just lost their job. So, yeah, I've been like, I would have just self-published it.
Well, and I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when the Kickstarter started, when you were promoting it, you did have remorse about it. You were actually openly talking about, like, I know people shouldn't throw money to this right now. But.
Yeah, it was like days of anxiety of, like, is this the right thing? Is this going to be, like, I don't know, there's like this would go viral as just, like, the begging, sad cartoonists who, like, are begging during a pandemic for money. I don't know. That was the fear, but it turned out people were, like, really supportive, especially at that beginning. There was like a feeling of, is this the end of comics and the end of small press? And is this the end of, you know, any kind of small independent art? That was like a real fear at the beginning of April. So I think people were really receptive to like supporting small press comics.
Mm-hmm. I've never done a Kickstarter for a personal book, but I know people have done it with someone else, you know, putting that together. And it was a Tinto Press, I guess, project, if you will. Did that take pressure off of you because you're like, I don't really have to worry about this? I mean, I know you were promoting it, or did it actually like make you feel like, you know, you had more pressure on you to help them succeed? Does that question make sense? You know, like as far as
like it was nice that it was just completely out of my hands. I didn't have to really do anything except post about it every couple of days. There was just the fear of embarrassment of it not, if it reached like $20 after a month, that was really the extent of the worry. But mostly it's just nice to have somebody else do all the work, really, putting your book out.
And before you mentioned you didn't do any shows in Chicago, really. Have you done comic shows? I've never seen you at a show.
Yeah, so I've just done Ice Cream in Iowa twice. That's really it. I was actually, this year before the pandemic hit, I was supposed to do, Autoptic, Cake and Zine Fest. I think, was it Grand Rapids? I think I was supposed to do a bunch of them for Goiter 5. But yeah, I've only really done Ice Cream because it's only recently that I've had enough stuff to put on a table at shows.
Mm-hmm. I've never actually heard of that show. Do you like that show?
Yeah, it's really good. It's Dave Dugan runs it out of Iowa City. It's in conjunction with some big book festival. I can't remember the name of it. But it's like a lot of really cool stuff there. It's like definitely a much smaller show, but yeah, I like it.
Hell yeah.
And you get a lot of people come in because it's just that big book festival that it's at the same time as.
Just going from, not tabling so much to having a lot of shows lined up this year, was that something that you did on your own, or was that something that you were doing with Tinto because they were putting the book out? Like, were you going to table with them, or were you going to table as an individual?
No, it was mostly, for most of them, it was going to be me and Evan Salazar
cool.
sharing a table. So it was all just like us doing it.
Yeah, awesome. Hopefully next year that'll happen so I can finally meet you all in real life.
Do you think there's going to be festivals in 2021? I'm thinking 2022.
I think 2021 is possible. I don't think it's out of the picture.
Yeah, because, they're saying the vaccination should come in the first quarter of next year. So I'm assuming that's what they're saying. I think the trials are actually going on over in England right now, and they're showing some pretty good success from what I've read.
Yeah, my mum got a test in the mail. It was like a test that you do, like a pregnancy test where you just do it there and then at home. So they've, how far ahead are they, right? I guess,
Right.
Yeah, I think it takes like 8 to 12 months for human trials. So we'll know soon enough, I guess.
And I don't know if I'd want to do the festivals in 2021 even. Would you be comfortable doing them?
I'm going to have to survey the landscape. I think what I'm going to do is the same thing I did this year, apply for every show that I want to do. And then when it comes down to having to send in that table fee, I'll have to assess whether or not I feel safe enough doing a show.
Well, a lot of them are just rolling over the people, right? So it's the same people who got into Cake for 2020 are doing 2021, right?
Yeah.
I believe so, I think.
To me, I think that's fair. But also, I also feel like they should possibly open up to newer exhibitors as well, because some people might have a different book in 2021 than they did in 2020.
Some people might drop out too. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I'm cool with everybody. From a tabling standpoint, it's exciting to know that I'm going to do TCAF next year. But at the same time, it kind of sucks for those that didn't make the cut in 2020 to just automatically not be able to do shows in 2021. But, there's no right answer, I guess, to that dilemma there, because it would be unfair to everybody that didn't get to do the show. So I don't really know where I'm going with that.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if I'll feel comfortable doing shows in 2021, but it could be a totally different world, who knows?
Yeah, I'm going to have to survey everything. I feel like timeline wise, as far as being comfortable, I feel like SPX 2021, because it's always in September, is probably the first show that I feel like might be safe. But yeah, we'll see, because I don't know. I don't know if we'll have enough stop of COVID in the first quarter of the year, and we'll see what happens. But the Spanish flu lasted, a year? Was it long? Was it 2 years?
Well, I think the main concern is two things, right? We need a treatment, a reliable treatment, and then we also need vaccine. Yep. If we have both of those things, I will table at any show. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and medical science has come way far in 100 years, so,
In the meantime, I will be going to every gas station and playing as many slot machines as I can.
That's your right as an American. You should just do it.
Exactly. It is my right. My body, my choice.
Yeah.
All right. So we were touching, I should have segued this into when Cam was talking about the digital aspect of your work.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about coloring.
Yeah.
So you color your work digitally, right?
It's a kind of a mix because the stuff I'm using is not digital. It's I'm taking backgrounds from old comics from the 50s and 60s and pasting them into my comics. So it's it's done on a computer, but it's it's kind of a mix, I guess.
Yeah, but it's all in terms of you not physically handling materials, it's digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I do notice a lot of texture in some of your work.
Yeah.
So are you just doing overlays? Is that, just a part of the process?
Yeah, I just paste them into Photoshop in the end when I finish the whole comic.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what. Overlay, it goes under the image. I don't know.
Yeah. So,
I don't know
okay.
technical stuff.
So, I mean, like when you have the layers for the colors, right? And then you're using swatches of scanned paper that you're using from other books.
Yeah.
So are you dropping that right underneath the line work and you're not doing anything beyond that?
No, that's it. I just like I'll do it with the lines too. So the lines have have like old paper behind it as well. So even like the black has, but yeah, it's just I'm just pasting it underneath and then that's really it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's effective. It works really well. And, the pages that I've seen using that method, it's, I would say, successful. So good on you.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Aren't we all? That's pretty much the 2020 slogan.
Trying.
We are all trying.
Yeah, pretty much.
So where can people find you online? Like social media, website, Patreon, anything like that?
I have a new website, which is goitercomics.com, which costs me $129 a year. So if people could look at it and make it worth paying $129 a year. Just look at it. That's all. Yeah, just have a website. I just got rid of my Patreon because I felt like I wasn't drawing anything, so I felt like I was just taking people's money for nothing. Yeah.
Hey, that's a great feeling too, honestly.
Yeah, so I just deleted that. Just Instagram, Goiter Comics, goitercomics.com. That's it, really. Tumblr.
Cool. Oh, you got a Tumblr too?
No. Don't you guys miss Tumblr though? I was thinking about this a lot recently, like the Simon Hanselman, Alex Schubert era of Tumblr. I was thinking about how much I miss that comics of that era.
Yeah, I definitely do miss Tumblr as well.
It was so much better for comics. I think Tumblr was so much better for comics than Instagram.
I agree.
Yeah, I would really only
100%.
read on Tumblr. I wasn't making comics well enough to post, so I wish I was able to post on Tumblr because I do think that the experience of it was better.
I miss boobs and wieners.
Yeah.
Well, now they're flagging all that on Tumblr, so
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Thanks for explaining my joke, Cam.
Hey, anything I can do to help the Gutter Gang. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes, thank you, Pete.
Yeah, so, that about does it for this episode 32 of the Gutter Boys podcast that was actually brought to you in part with the Autoptic Festival of 2020. Like we've been kind of plugging on the show, there's going to be a lot of other content under this episode in your podcast feed if you subscribe. And if you don't subscribe, it'll just be wherever you find our podcast at. Make sure to listen to those. I do want to thank Josh again. I'm a big fan of Josh's work. So to finally be able to talk to him on this podcast was really nice for me. So thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And,
if I yelled, it's because these headphones, by the way, really, I can't hear myself talk. So I think I may have yelled all the way through it, but okay. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And
that would have been fantastic if you were just screaming into the fucking mic the entire time.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy really loves comics. He's really excited about his comics.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, as always, if you wanted to participate with us in the show, we ask questions on our Instagram accounts. I'm at Cam Del Rosario on there. JB is at Mort Crimp Jr. You can also email us at gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com. If you feel inclined, please, like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review or a 1-star review, however you feel about the show. It's always appreciated, and as always, stay gutter.
Down in the ocean, one by one, disappear. Down in the ocean, one by one, disappear. I built these bags and stacked them against the dam. Am I on the wrong side of this wall? And when the cracks appeared, the sirens will serenade on just the wrong side of mercy. All I've ever done is hold the levee's thirst. How could you sit there just watching without a sound?